All right.
Okay. This is the meeting of the Grand Marais Public Utilities Commission on February 5th at 3:30 p.m., a late start. And I'll call the meeting to order. In attendance is Acting Chair Bill Hanson, that's me. Scott Watson? Warner, sorry. Senior moment, whatever that guy's name is.
Whoever he is.
Charles Hathaway. We have a guest, and Patrick Knight is on the electronics over there.
Jeff's our featured guest, as a matter of fact.
Yes, featured guest.
Line worker, Jeff Elias.
Okay, great. Welcome, Jeff. So the first item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the agenda.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that takes us right into the meat of our agenda, which is, we don't have the approval of the minutes. Do we need that? Does that just go with the agenda automatically?
I move that we approve the minutes.
Okay, I'll second that. And by acclamation, the minutes are approved. And we'll go right into our first agenda item, which is the recent outage report.
In your packet, we've included a memo that summarizes a little bit of what happened and what we intend to do about it. Invited Jeff to come to the meeting to maybe provide you with just a little more detail about how things went.
Jeff, you're on.
Well, all right. Yeah, so we got called in roughly 9:30 in the morning, and the circuit was completely out, and we have two circuits in our substation. So we have two circuit breakers, and the circuit breaker was blown. So we have no idea what it is, a fault, or we had reason to believe that it was load, because it was the coldest day of the year. But we isolated two parts of the circuit and found out the one held, the OCR came on, the circuit breaker. So now we know roughly half of where, the half that the problem's on. So we just started eliminating pieces, and it takes time to isolate all the parts. And we have this fault wizard that we purchased a couple of years ago, which was huge. We always relied on Arrowhead Electric to borrow theirs when and a crew to come and run it for them. So we have our own, and it worked out great, but it takes time. So
How does that work exactly? You have to drive around to certain spots and plug it in?
to each of the green boxes, which
Okay.
are junction boxes
Ah.
for our underground cables, where they
Sure.
all come up, so they obviously go from one to the other, so
Yep.
you have to isolate them to find out. You can't go through.
So you just
Each
start
one.
at the circuit breaker basically and work your way out?
Yes, yeah.
That's it.
Sometimes,
Why is it called the thumper?
well, because it's actually called a fault wizard.
Yeah.
But it has a mode on it that once you do find the problem, say it's between this box and this box, it has a mode that you can push and it thumps. So it sends, I believe it's 10,000, some of them do 50,000, I think ours is 10,000 volts through the line, and wherever the fault is, it goes to ground, and it comes up and you can hear it in the ground thumping.
Wow.
So it also has a distance, a rough, sometimes accurate, but it'll get you in the vicinity. So 300 feet between boxes, it'll say 240 feet. You walk out roughly 240 feet, you know where the line is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this was above ground. It was an elbow that you put, that's what you plug into these modules when you have an terminated underground cable, so it's safe. So, but you have to, yeah, it just takes time. Sometimes you can jump ahead and eliminate, we lucked out, we had a spot over on 8th Avenue, we could join the two circuits together, and it's a fusible link. So now when we're plugging in elbows, we'd test, but sometimes we'd jump ahead a little more. Otherwise, we would have been there for 30 hours, you know. You just gotta take a chance that it's not, because there's radials that go off. So getting a little ahead of myself there, but it just took a lot of time. You know. Luckily, we had Arrowhead Electric there to help.
How long was the outage, and what big of an area, or how big of an area?
It started out, I believe, at 400 and 500 customers. We pretty quickly got it down to 100. So it was mostly west of our shop up at
Oh,
by the power plant there. By the time, probably within 2 hours. So most people that by the hospital, cop shop, all the way out to Devil's Track River, they were back on, I think, within an hour.
and then some were offline for, out of power for,
I believe 13 hours.
oh, okay,
think it
so
was-
kind of a lot for those guys.
For a cold day.
Cold days.
Right.
It was a long time, yeah.
I was chatting with a plumber, and he mentioned that he did have some calls on frozen pipes after that. And I was like, really? People's pipes don't last that long? And he's like, well, older houses, or they have heat tape on them, and,
Yeah.
you know, but it wasn't a lot,
We
but he said.
unfortunately had one of those too at about 9 o'clock at night, and Scott happened to be down in
Oh.
southern Minnesota. One of his water guys were helping us all day, Al,
Awesome.
so that was huge. He's a big help, running stuff.
Mhm.
Well, on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission, thank you for your hard work. And,
Cold work as well.
yeah, of course, it's bound to happen on the coldest day of the year, but
Always.
So 400 of how many customers do we have?
I don't know.
Roughly?
It was
We have
about
like-
500 of 1,100,
It's almost half, yeah.
yeah. I mean, we have 2 circuits, and one of them was out, so it's a lot. It's one of the reasons why we're talking about changing things up a little bit, rather than having the guys search an entire 500 customer system. And really, they did a great job limiting that to just 100 pretty quickly.
yeah.
But they've got some ideas about ways we can do things different and be able to break the system into more pieces. First of all, just literally have more than 2 circuits that have breakers in the substation. But then also install a few more places in town where we can sectionalize and disconnect things and work at a slightly smaller pieces to try and limit the space they have to search at detail for where the problem is. So there's not much information we can offer on that yet. It's going to take a little bit of planning and particularly the idea of splitting our 2 circuits into more than that. It's going to take a lot of planning, and we need to bring in some engineering assistance to make sure that that's thought through correctly. So that will be coming back to you with
Okay.
some concepts, proposals to look at future meetings. But that's kind of a goal for the year to
You
think
don't
about
need
that.
it, you don't need anything from us now?
Not today,
Okay.
just we want you to know what's going on, what we intend to do about it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then we'll be bringing you when there are steps to take that require decisions and resources, we'll be bringing that information to you.
How often are there outages? Doesn't seem like it's very often.
Of that scale?
Yeah.
Extremely rare.
Yeah.
Think, how many outages a year do we have? Maybe a couple dozen, but most of them are a squirrel, and it's not very many customers, and it's really quick that they can find it and fix it. And
Yeah, it's the underground is a huge, you can't just drive and find it. It's-
Yeah.
But it's generally less susceptible to,
Way
Problems?
more reliable.
yeah.
Underground,
Yeah.
yes.
Defeats the squirrels anyway.
defeats the squirrels and then the trees, and those are the 2 things that are probably the most common
Mhm.
to take the lines out, so.
As long as the gophers don't decide to chew on the lines.
Yeah. So far, I don't think we have many gophers here, knock on wood.
Yeah.
They're not far away, but
So there was a bit in here about redistributing the load across circuits. How concerned are you, or should we be, about the generally increasing load throughout the area, throughout the community?
Well, I think it's pretty, we definitely have to start thinking about it,
Yeah,
because it's only getting bigger.
right.
In terms of the capacity of the substation to handle more load, there really isn't one that we have to worry about. In terms of the, our power plant that we have to run the city is a 6 megawatt plant when all 3 engines are running at full capacity. And we'll peak above 5 megawatts right now. So that's of concern. But that is, Arrowhead's been in that position for a long, long time with their system where they have 18 megawatts of backup generation capacity, potentially, right, to operate their system if it was isolated. But their load is much bigger than that on a cold day in January. So, we work in cooperation with them and with the transmission line operators to do planning on those issues. I think that this idea of reengineering the load distribution is more about how do we make it so that if an entire circuit goes out, it's not half our customers.
Right.
But then also thinking about where the new growth is going to occur so that they're balanced, all the 4, if we end up with 4 circuits are balanced, that we do think about where the new load is going to grow and that we're ready for it.
Do we have how many circuits now?
2 circuits.
Just 2, yeah.
And we have room for 2 more in our substation. But that would require burying line out,
To those areas.
yeah, to the new areas, or bigger line, more than likely, nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's not going to start tomorrow, right? That we want to have some planning done this year on that.
Great. So that's something you get a consultant in to
Yeah.
say, okay, let's think about how this, how the overall system could be designed.
Right. And it's not, most of the system isn't going to be touched, right, to do that work.
Right.
So that's part of what we want somebody to help us think through is what's the best way to redistribute this that requires the least amount of new equipment.
Right. You put it side by side rather than pulling out the old stuff or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So I'd like to talk a little bit about how the public gets notified when outages happen. And I don't want this to sound like a criticism of you. I had my own power system at Sawbill, my whole life. And when the power went down, I didn't wait or call. That was me. So I'm very sympathetic, extremely sympathetic. And I couldn't hang around to say to people, well, I think this is what the problem is, but I don't know. I was off to dive in and find out what the heck was going on and get the power back on.
Right.
And, but for a public entity like us, I think it's important that we do get information out to people in a timely way. Of course, it does always happens on a weekend. I recognize that, and can't really expect Patrick, for instance, to be on call for this kind of thing 24/7 through the weekend. But is there a way we can set up a tree? I'd be willing to, I can't speak for Charles or Craig, but I'd be willing to be part of that, of some kind of a system where the line people could quickly, call. Even if it's, so from my point of view, sitting at my house, power went out. It's out for 10 minutes, and my wife is asking me, don't they have a backup generator in Grand Marais? And I said, well, apparently, that's not the problem.
It's not the problem.
And then, of course, the next question we have for each other is, are we the only ones out? Is it just our house, and are we going to freeze because they don't notice that we're out? So that's the next thing. So then we go out and look around the neighborhood and see that the neighborhood's out. And she's like, well, you should call. And I'm like, well, I'm sure some people have called, I'm sure they're aware. But we didn't hear anything until it came back on, other than people on Facebook saying, I'm out of power, are you out of power? That went around. But is there a way we could set up a system? Even if it was, we're aware there's an outage, we don't know what's wrong, we're working on it. I think would be really reassuring to people if we could make that and have some kind of a, nowadays with texting, maybe we could just have a text group and then an order, so you could put out that statement saying, we're on it, we'll let you know when we know something. You'd be the first one to call the radio station and post on the community Facebook pages. If you're not around, if you don't respond, then it would fall to you. If you don't respond, then it would fall to me. And if I don't respond, it would fall to Charles. And we confirm on the, something like that, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it would be nice to have that, I think, to.
Yeah, first of all, we don't have on-call
Yeah.
administrative staff.
Right, which we don't expect.
Meaning we don't pay people to be
Yeah,
available
yeah.
for times that are outside.
And we can't expect
But-
them to be on call if we're not paying them.
I do,
Yeah,
expect, I'm certainly available most of the time. At a holiday weekend where we didn't coordinate beforehand and somebody's on their way out of town and somebody is out of town and somebody,
Yeah.
it's
That's what I'm
not,
saying.
it's a not big office, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna just set aside your offer of assistance.
So
'cause it
before
may
we,
be-
before we go on, I have a unique perspective on this because I also sit on the WTIP Advisory Board, and we've talked about this. And WTIP gets criticized. They're like, why weren't you on that, Well, not this particularly, but any breaking news, basically. Well, it's the weekend. Nobody works at WTIP on the weekend, and they're not expected to be on call.
No.
If they're in town, they'll go out, out of the goodness of their heart and cover something. There is usually someone at the station, but in this case, it was somebody who was just basically a DJ, doesn't
Yeah,
know any of the procedures or know what to do, and they did their best. And then I also sit on the Housing and Redevelopment Authority Board, and when the information went out that it was potentially an overload, there was a huge thread that developed about, well, why are we building new housing? We shouldn't build any more new housing if we don't have the capacity for it in our electrical system. And I was just like, no, tearing my hair out because we already have plenty of headwinds to building new housing without creating ones that don't exist, So that's what's got me kind of thinking about this.
yeah.
And again, I don't mean it as a criticism. I understand where you guys.
Now, it requires, we need our professional staff that's in the field to tell us what the situation is. But they can't be the ones that are spending a lot of their time doing that, because we need them to be
They're busy,
looking
yeah.
for the problem and fixing it
Real busy.
primarily. And so that means we need to be, when there's a significant outage like this, we need to have a system ready to also spool up our administrative staff that we didn't have. Now, I don't think we've ever had a situation where there was no one available if law enforcement or if the guys need help and they call, So not sure we need to build an on-call system yet, but we're definitely talking about what's the best way to do this and communicate with each other about the possibility of, hey, this happens, who's going to come in? And then I think the other issue we have is we need to make sure that there's 2 or maybe 3 people that are capable of every one of those tasks too. And that's true of a lot of the tasks we do administratively, but not all of them. So we also want to be able to just, regardless of who's around, send out that simple message. It wouldn't have been, if we would have had 3 people in the office that day, it wouldn't have necessarily been a different message than we sent, though. The best that we knew at the time was that load could have been a factor. And so in an effort to fix the problem immediately, we took that risk and understood the consequences and probably would still do it again. And we've tried to tell people a few times afterwards that wasn't it. But that message is harder
Yeah,
to
the damage is
travel.
done. Yeah, even to qualify it a little bit, like, it would be helpful to our linemen if people tried to reduce power
Yeah.
instead of just saying it's a load issue, because then, that triggers that whole.
But I think that's a good
Landslide
conversation to
things.
have too. You asked the questions as well then, like, okay, is it an issue? And now the question's out there, and I think we owe a better, more thorough answer than we've offered, which, our offer now was, it wasn't a load issue. But people are curious about, well, what does the load, what does that mean? And How do we know it's not? And how do we know that it's okay to build all this stuff? And I'm confident that it's okay to build all this stuff. That's not good enough. We need to be able to demonstrate why we know that. And
We did discuss it at a PUC meeting when I was early, one of
Yeah.
the early meetings when I joined the PUC, was when the Gunflint View was just
Yeah.
sort of moving toward, and I think I asked the question, like, 51 apartments, is that going to
Yeah.
tax our sewage and water and electrical system? And your answer was no.
No.
It'll be fine.
You know, I mean, it's a big customer
Yeah.
for sure, but it's a single-digit percentage in growth, and we've got a significantly more
Capacity.
capacity than that in growth on all of our systems than just a single digit. It's not even. Let's not leave it as a question about just the system, though, right? Because when a big customer shows up, it's individual parts of the system too that we think about. And okay, well, where are they going to get their water pressure from, and is that adequate? Or what are the sewer lines from there to the plant, and are those adequate? And there's no project that's been proposed or that's being constructed right now that in and of itself is going to be an issue. All of them together aren't going to be an issue. It's still a good conversation for us to dig into,
Absolutely.
just a little bit more than we have. And I think with water and wastewater, we've done a lot more work on that than we have with electric, because it just hasn't been a concern at all with electric. But now, we're going to do some work on that too. And so we talk about creating 4 circuits instead of 2. What comes with that is a better description of what each load is on those circuits, where we expect growth to be, how much it can be, how our system's capable of handling it. Just a lot more depth of information that we can offer you as a board, but also the public, so that they can be a little more assured about it.
What's the current setup for communication? Like, for instance, when there's a power outage, communication with the customers, with, I guess, the city in general, and then what sort of follow-up? Because it seems like part of the thing, at least in this particular case, would be, we initially suspected this, however, it wasn't that, we made these repairs, and we are going to follow up in the future with a new design, which will help us accommodate new loads and help us solve these problems faster. I mean,
Yep.
seems like there's 2 components. Like, one is the alert, kind of like, here's what's going on. If you want to know if your power's out, here's what we can tell you about why and where. And then the second is like the follow-up.
Well, first of all, just mainly to reassure people, it's not just you, I mean, because that's the fear everybody has right away is, well, it's my house, they're not going to notice, I'm going to slowly freeze to death.
Or
Well, everybody blatantly
It's
goes
just
on.
my house, I don't need to call anybody, because they know it and they'll fix it and it's no big deal.
That too.
Yeah, there is no system, right? What we offer to any customer, of course, is that let us know, please, if you have an outage. We probably already know,
Yeah.
but don't rely on that. You can let us know directly. How do we communicate with customers when there's an outage? It depends. How many are out? And we're trying to make that a little more formalized and have maybe a slightly better communication plan that we can show you.
Yeah, like, could it go to
This.
the city website, or could it go to the
Oh, it
Facebook
does.
page,
It
or
does.
WTIP?
It does all that already. We do all that already.
Oh, so that's a kind of a system, right?
I mean, we have
in the
tools.
in the first 15 or 20 minutes.
You know what, that we maybe didn't know. Like, so that's part of the issue is, okay, if the guys are alerted to an outage, are they going to call us in the first 15 or 20 minutes? Like, that's sort of part of the system that we need to figure out, how do we get notified?
Yeah.
Because my power wasn't out, and I didn't know until I was called by a city official whose power was out and said, hey, what's going on? Which is well more than an hour into the outage. So we're trying to figure out, how do we make sure that there is some administrative support that also gets notified right away? It can be there to assist, and particularly to do what you're asking for, which is to communicate, and then secondarily to make sure that they have everything they need to get the job done.
Yeah, or like if people knew, hey, my power goes out, I can go to this website or Facebook page or whatever, or call up WTB. I don't know how that would work, but
Yeah.
and I can find out why.
What you
Or
don't
found
get to,
out-
you don't get to necessarily
Well,
know
okay,
anything.
won't-
Right, not the diagnostic part, but I mean,
Yeah.
you can find out that there was an outage experienced in most of the west side or something, and we were working at it. I mean, that much.
I think much better to go broadcast route than that, because most people aren't going to remember or know. Lots of people don't use computers or smartphones, you know, they're listening to the radio. So I think a broadcast, you know, if the lineman, if you can do it just a text, it's so quick, you know, just a text saying, we've been called out, we understand there's an outage, we're working on it.
Well, we'll
That's
figure that
mostly what
problem
people-
out.
That's what most of what people need to know, I think. They don't care what the problem is, you
You'd
know.
be surprised how many people care about.
Well, maybe they do care,
a
but
lot
they
more.
don't.
And whatever we know, we want people to be able to get access to.
Let's not sacrifice the good for the perfect, though, you know.
Yeah.
Let's get people out, just that reassurance, like, that the city knows they're working on it. That would, and me as a consumer sitting at home, if we had gotten that message, you know, if the radio had come on, we were listening to the
Yeah.
radio, and said, there's a power outage in Grand Marais, they're on it, they're working, linemen are out, hold them in your hearts, it's a cold day.
Right, so
That's all we would need. That would have been
have,
satisfied.
I mean, a press release is one of our tools that we'll use right away. It'll definitely go to the radio station, into Boreal, and to other places. The new tool that we're adding soon is Text My Gov, where people,
Yeah.
if they want to know this right away, then sign up for that service. And the first way we're going to be using it is not for them to text us, but for us to text them and to tell people, this is, an outage is occurring, we're on it. Just exactly what you said, a very short, simple message is kind of a first
I mean,
attempt.
even a press release isn't gonna, if you send a press release to Boreal and WTIP, they won't see it till Monday morning,
If it's on the
when
weekend.
Matthew
No,
comes
you
in.
you can post, we can post stuff to online right away. I mean, the radio station may not be able to broadcast it right away, but we
Well,
can
they-
get the word out right away to
They
people.
could broadcast it, but the guy who's playing records isn't looking at the incoming email or text to the station. He's only gonna get it if you call.
Well, unfortunately, we took their power out too.
Yeah, but they have a backup.
They do.
They were on the air.
It is
So-
useful that they have one.
Yeah, no.
They're also a great tool for us to get the word out afterwards, too.
Yes, yeah. In
And
fact,
explain the story.
I would suggest that you go
Yeah.
on in person and
Did,
talk about this.
already did.
Uh,
Did that.
Oh, that's right, I did hear that, yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe talk in more depth about the improvements, or just, you know, if you do agree to have a little bit more robust initial notification system, then maybe you could go talk about that a little bit, like,
Mhm.
we know people are worried, we put a little system in place that will sort of ad hoc, but it will get the word out.
So, and
Yeah.
I don't want to take up the whole meeting with this, but I just, so if I were sitting at home and the power goes out, what would you suggest would be my first move to try to find out what's going on?
First move, call us at City
Just call
Hall.
city?
Yeah.
But on a Sunday, you're gonna get a voicemail.
You're not gonna, yeah, there will not be
Yeah.
someone there. We have, I mean, you can always contact law enforcement. If there's 500 outages, that's not gonna work very well.
Right.
So, that's how our staff are dispatched, is through law enforcement. So outside of our regular office hours, if someone reports an outage, then that's who will alert our staff to come to work.
So if I went to the city website, that would be of no help.
No.
But could it be? I mean, could there be like a 2-sentence posting there if you find out what's,
Within the hour, there was.
there was?
There was a posting on the website,
City website?
city website, the Facebook page, and a message sent to Boreal and Boreal's listserv, and WTIP was in contact with us.
And that's pretty good, right?
And I think it's just closing, getting that loop as tight as we can.
Closing the
Faster.
gap, yeah, because like I said,
There's no, you're asking the question, and I think with the hopes that whatever information I provide will help people get, but everybody has their own way they want to do it too.
Want to do.
And there isn't a single medium that reaches more than,
Yeah.
10, 15% of people
Yeah.
reliably.
But I was thinking if I knew that if something happens, I should go to the city website, and if there's information, it'll be there.
Yeah.
That would be helpful.
That is the case, not though within 2 minutes, right?
Right.
It might take an hour.
Yeah. But even so, to me, that's not horrible.
I
You want to know right away.
Is there a reason why we can't just have a text that goes to somebody that immediately calls WTIP?
Well, we don't necessarily know what the issue is.
No,
or-
you don't
or
have to know what the
or
issue
the
is.
extent of it.
All the people want to know is, we know the power's out, our crew is working on it.
Yeah,
Then people understand they have to be
wait,
patient.
just wait and see, I think, until we've got a slightly more developed communication plan written down for you to look at. I think there's more issues than you're considering when it comes to the types of outages that we have and when we should do that, what you're asking for, and when we probably shouldn't. So, yeah, stay tuned on this, and we'll try to get a better explanation of
Yeah,
what
well-
we want to do and see what you think.
Just a suggestion, but I am hearing from the community a lot of frustration about the communication, just so you're aware. People are frustrated. I was frustrated.
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck's going on? And I was checking everywhere. Nothing.
Yeah, but there wasn't nothing, right? So it wasn't that there wasn't communication happening, it was that
Wasn't getting to the,
you didn't see it. And, yeah, so.
wasn't getting to the person, the people that need it.
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna adjust and try to figure out if there's other ways we can do that.
And it did do some damage, unfortunately, from a PR point of view, which was frustrating to me. It's like, as an HRA board member, I was like, oh, Lord, we don't need this, So I would also ask that you be careful in those communications to, I know it's hindsight's 20/20, it's easy for me to say.
I
But,
would tell you again that with the same information we had at the time, we would have said the same thing.
Would have
Like-
been better to say, it would help us if, in this situation, if you tried to shed power.
I understand
Something like that,
the
rather than just
concern-
like, the system can't handle it. That's how I read it, is the system can't handle it, we're dead in the water. That's how other people interpreted it too, so.
It was what we wanted people to hear at the time. What if
Okay.
it was true?
All right, well,
I mean-
it did a lot of damage, just so you know. That's frustrating to me.
I hear your frustration. I get it. And I'm,
Unforced error, and did some serious damage to a really important effort in the community when it could have been avoided with 3 more words in that statement, But if you can't put those 3 words in, you can't put those 3 words in.
but
I just don't think that's true, what I'm saying.
Well, I do. We disagree then.
Yeah.
It was unfortunate. And it's ongoing. I'm still hearing it, so. But.
I mean, it could have been avoided by not bringing the issue up altogether, but I don't think that would have been.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking for a slightly more clear communication. But if that's beyond your capacity, it's beyond your capacity.
Well, I don't think that's
Let's
what
move on.
he's saying, it's beyond his capacity. I think what he's saying is, in the moment when the communication was put out, this was what we thought
Yeah, but
was
that's
the
like
situation.
saying, I see cop lights down by the highway. Could be a mass murder.
No.
That's true. But that's not what you want to put out PR-wise. You want to say, there's an incident, the police are working on it, we'll get you more information as soon as we know.
Yeah, this is.
You see what I mean? The difference
I
there?
mean, I think we've moved beyond a productive
Well,
conversation at this point.
It's obviously an extreme example, but I am frustrated with it, so, but let's move on. Next item thanks for coming in, and again, thanks for your work.
you're
Again,
welcome.
no criticism of you.
No.
I'm just it was just a frustration with the overall communication, but let's move on to agenda item E, water plant improvements. Is that you, Scott?
I guess it is. So the first memo we have is regarding the water treatment plant roof. It's 30-some years old. It's leaking. We've gotten our money's worth out of that roof, and it's about time to replace it. And so I got 2 prices. They were almost identical in price. Kettle is I think I pronounced that right, is $100 cheaper. It appears to be an apples-to-apples comparison, so I'm suggesting we look at Kettle's proposal, take that.
I'm just curious, how do you distinguish between these companies? I mean, there's not Yelp ratings or something? Like, how do you know which of these companies is like well qualified to do the work, has experience in this area, is knows what they're doing?
They're bigger roofing companies, commercial roofing companies.
So they're both
Yeah.
well-known and
We've worked with
well-established.
both of them.
Ah, okay, yeah, that helps a lot,
And
too.
they're statewide, I mean, these are big companies, both of them,
Mhm.
Yeah,
with great reputations.
I'm a little bit singed from being up at the Y and having the leaky roof up there after 10 years. It's like, So, it's definitely important to have a good company with a good reputation and knows what they're doing. I don't really know what the problem is at the Y, but I feel like we got burned in a public entity there, so.
This should be a relatively simple project, huh?
It should be,
Yeah,
yes.
it's just one roof, one flat
Yeah,
roof.
just one roof.
Do you need us to pass a resolution authorizing this?
Please.
Do I hear a resolution authorizing the acceptance of A.W. Kettle's bid for?
Yeah, I move that,
$48,000.
we accept the proposal, accept the bid.
All right, I'll second that, and by acclamation, it passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, now I gotta turn a few pages. Okay, the sand filter. The water plant sand filter media is dirty after many years of use, and it can't flow the water anymore. It's just like an air filter in your car. I mean, you can blow it out so many times, and then you, in this case, there's a way that we can chemically treat it to remove a lot of that debris that's accumulated, and then we're a ways away from having to replace the media. So that's a non-issue. And so this is an intermediate step that will definitely gain us time before we need to change out the media.
Now, in this one, it looks like there was only,
There's
Only
only one
one?
outfit that I was able to find that does that, and these guys come well recommended from communities around the state.
okay, that's nice.
Both of these first two projects were when there was COVID money available, and the water plant was one of the eligible places to spend it. We thought these were both two areas we would want to invest in. The roof, which we knew needed to be replaced, and then the filter media, which we considered replacing. And this company here came in to look at what it would take to replace it, and their analysis says you don't need to, and instead just do this cleaning.
What's the replacement cost approximately?
But we didn't get a quote for that.
No.
We did not, but it would be significantly more than,
Like double or more?
double or more,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Easily.
Probably a
Yeah,
lot more
good-
than double. Yeah,
good.
so this is great.
Yeah,
This
good work.
And the company came in and didn't try to oversell us, and that was, I mean, they're clearly
Yeah.
a reputable company as well, and then very knowledgeable about how to operate these systems. It's great. This media was, I mean, it's mid-90s, I think, when we
Yeah.
added that second filter, so it's been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's I mean, we're regularly cleaning it. It's, when we backwash, that means we're trying to get the dirt out of the sand filter. And so there's a regular cleaning occurs all the time, and then this now is something we might add to do, every 5 to 10 years or something, try to
Mhm.
keep the life of it as long as we can.
Yeah.
So, what is it that clogs that filter? Is it algae or
It's debris.
a little bit of sediment?
Think of a sponge that the sediment, the debris, sometimes it's scale, gets into that sponge, and you can't get it out by
Yeah,
just physically agitating things.
This is the filter between the lake and the.
And
the
drinking water,
people's
yes.
tap,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
I'm just thinking of the sand filters up at the Y, which I see, and those get clogged with, there's like grease, hair,
Mhm.
that
Our
skin
water supply is
particles.
a little cleaner.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it gets filtered out, but it's just, I'm just thinking it's a different kind of debris that would be collecting in those filters. I'm
Right.
guessing it's whatever comes in from the lake.
This is mostly physical things.
Yeah.
Just little tiny particulates that we're
Sediment.
filtering out.
Yeah.
Sediment, yeah.
Yeah.
Sand, silt,
Fish saliva.
clay, yeah, fish saliva.
Fish scales.
yep.
Fishing lures.
Yep.
The occasional paddleboarder.
So it's gonna be treated with strong acid, and then the acid is gonna be neutralized with strong base,
Yes.
and then
It
I'm
goes
just,
to the wastewater plant.
all gets flushed out. At some point, though, you're gonna start pumping water through it again,
Yes.
and you hope by that time all that acid and base is out of the system. and it's
The
not-
acid and base neutralize each other very quickly
Yeah,
as part of physics
So
and
it's-
chemistry.
yeah.
And so that helps us that way. And we will definitely be running water through the filter, sending it directly to the wastewater plant.
Right.
So that way we're not sending
Till you know.
partially weird water
right.
into the drinking system.
Yeah, yeah. How do you know when you're done? How do you know when it's flushed
Test
enough
You can test it, you can
for?
take a drink.
Yeah.
Send it to his house.
Yeah, I'm just curious about how that whole operation works.
My best estimation would be that once the pH gets back up to what the lake water is, that things are neutralized
Yeah,
and diluted and flushed through, so.
yeah,
And then at that point, I would be comfortable.
yeah.
Sending it back to
Seems
the
reasonable.
city.
You're matching the incoming water.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, good work on saving the taxpayers' money. It's great.
Yeah, I gotta give both Neil and Tom credit for getting a lot of this legwork done.
Set up ahead of
And it
time.
was just a matter of putting every little pieces together and continuing on.
What's the total?
8,100.
8,100, okay. I would entertain a motion to approve this work.
I move that we approve the work and go forward. What's the schedule on it?
Can we cover the schedule when we get to the filter?
Oh, this is all one package?
Kind of one package, yes.
I see, okay. Yeah, anyway, I move that we approve the proposal.
I'll second that. By acclamation, it passes unanimously.
Okay. So the next thing we have is the water filter plant repairs, and there's engineering costs to this as well. The Department of Health has required us to repair some cracks in the concrete of the structure of both of the water filters. And so we got pricing. The three prices are listed in the memo. And then there's some engineering that the state is requiring us to do. So we brought in AE2S to do the engineering. That is a tentative number. They did a little bit more work than that. So I haven't heard what the official number is going to be as far as what AE2S will be charging. And maybe that's in there. I simply don't know yet, that answer yet.
What's AE2S's role?
AE2S is a professional engineering outfit that works with the water and wastewater plant.
Yeah, what I meant was
They have to
what's
sign off
their,
on plans for the Department of Health to
Thank
review.
you.
they have to send
Sign off on plans,
plans for the repair.
yeah.
Yes, yeah, the Department of Health requires us
Engineering.
to do engineering-approved memo, plans, drawings, as necessary for the particular project.
Mhm.
Ours just takes a memo
Mhm.
to get this project going.
Why do you suppose those bids were so different from each other?
They were using, Thule and MMS were using a similar process of sandblasting the concrete, grinding out the cracks as needed, and then coating it with various products to provide a barrier that water can't get through into the concrete. And then Magni had a process where they would drill holes in the concrete and inject under pressure a chemical that would react with water to seal the cracks.
Huh?
From the
And-
inside.
From the inside, yes.
Wow.
We have spots on the outside that you cannot get to. You can
Mm-hmm.
see them, but there's no way that an adult can get inside of those areas to
To drill?
to drill the holes and do that
So,
process.
Are you making a recommendation to us on which bid to accept
We're recommending the Thule proposal
because of that
because of the,
issue?
it seems to be the most economical and a good way of going.
Okay, but they can solve that
Yes.
unreachable
Yes,
problem? Okay.
yes. They will be doing all the work from inside the intake of the sand filter.
Oh, gosh, that sounds like fun.
It's actually, it's probably about 2.5, 3 feet wide, about 10 or 12 feet long, and about 4 feet deep.
Yeah.
So it's totally accessible to do the things from the inside, but that means we have to take the filter out of service.
You pull the
For-
sand out?
The sand stays in.
Huh.
So this is before it gets to the sand. So it comes into a channel, and then there's 2 troughs that go above the sand proper, and the water flows out of the troughs and then down through the sand. And then the sand,
And so the cracks are in that structure.
the cracks are in the area before it gets to the sand and the troughs.
So it's just filled with water,
Yes, it is just
Typically.
filled with water.
and that's what's leaking?
Yes.
Oh, I was thinking it was the sand filter, the walls of the sand
yeah.
filter itself.
There's a couple of spots, it's all one big concrete structure.
Yeah.
And so, but the cracks are in the intake side of things.
Yeah.
And we have not noticed anything where the sand is.
Yeah.
It's not to say that in the future it couldn't happen, but
Right.
let's not go there.
Right. And okay, again, I'm always a little nervous about accepting the low bid because it's like, yeah, maybe that's because they don't have experience or they do sloppy work or they're
These guys are a
not qualified.
reputable outfit. They've
Yeah.
been doing work for 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
It's
And,
warranted, I assume.
I didn't ask that
No.
question.
I mean, there's sort of an implied warranty, I think, on work like this.
I would
It has
think
to
there
be,
would be
yeah.
at least a year warranty.
Yeah.
But that would be good to get nailed down before.
Yes.
Yeah, ask them that, for sure. But I bet you they do.
And the cracks on the inside aren't big enough. I mean, they must be small cracks. They're going to spray on a coating and that should be
Most
enough.
of them are going to be small cracks,
Yeah.
with less than a 1/16 of an inch thick.
Yeah, yeah.
There's some of them, there's one crack at the top that's not quite an eighth, but the AE2S is proposing that if there's a crack that's an eighth of an inch thick, that it be opened up with a grinder and then put in a chemical called Zypex that expands when it comes into contact with water, and then they can seal, put the coating over the top of that.
Back it up.
Yep.
All right, well, sounds good. Again, thank you for saving money on behalf of the taxpayers.
Sure.
And I would entertain a motion to authorize Scott to accept the bid from Dual.
Contingent on getting the
Contingent
warranty
on getting
information.
warranty
Yep.
information to
And-
his satisfaction.
And I noticed there was a schedule listed for this, and that his work was scheduled to start February 3rd.
Right, and that has been updated. The work will start on the 11th of February,
Wow.
and then the coating should be applied by the 14th. So we've already got the tank out of service, and it's drying. So the intake channel is drying out now. And then there's no cost to doing that, so we knew we were safe doing that.
Yeah, that's what started February 3rd.
Yes.
So does that mean the filters are out of service because you don't have an intake?
One
Yeah.
filter is out of service, and
Ah.
they're separate intakes.
I see. And we'll do both.
We'll do both.
Right,
both
one at a time, right. Yeah, and it's a good time of year to do it, right? Demand's down.
Best
Yes,
time of year to do it.
yep.
There is a warranty here, actually. At the very back, in very small print.
From the paint or the liner.
Yeah, it's just warranting that the materials are warranted to do the job they say they're going to do, so. But you could ask them about their workmanship too, but I'm sure
Sure.
they're willing to back it up.
Or if it starts leaking in 5 years, do we have recourse?
I don't think we're gonna get a warranty that's gonna last that
5
long
years,
anyway.
No, not 5 years, but, I mean, the fear is, of course, that they do it, and they go home, and a couple days later.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they would make good on that, because they want to protect their reputation, but ask them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, how long is it
Definitely do
supposed to
that.
last? Do we have any sense of that?
I'm sorry?
How long is it supposed to last, the fix?
I would anticipate 5 to 10 years, easy. And so normally, I've seen these types of coatings put on wastewater tanks that don't leak at all
Yeah.
in decades of service. So that's the best answer I can give you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess 5 years to me doesn't seem like much, but if it lasts 30 years, great.
Mhm, exactly.
Oh, one more thing then, again, with the taste, this is I didn't exactly understand what the material is, but is this gonna get into the water and does this offer, at least for a while, a taste in the water that comes?
The best when we do the media clean.
So there'll be
Yeah, we
there'll be
talked about.
clean water running through that freshly coated intake channels?
Yes.
So that's
Yes.
good, that's
Yep.
good. Yeah.
And then that water will go to the wastewater plant
Right.
until we're confident that we don't have any issues with the water. before-
You'll be there with the glass.
Sure.
You should go.
I don't have a good sense of taste.
I've lost track of the motion. Did you make the motion?
We started on a kind of a
You
motion
did.
and,
You did make the motion?
Contingent on the warranty.
Okay.
oh, you're right.
And I'll second that, and by acclamation, it passes unanimously. What else you got?
Okay, I got to get there. There's a, hey, you can see all the pictures of the,
Oh, yeah, that's really
Oh, the
cool.
leaking.
Yeah.
and years ago, there was a patch that was tried to put on, but the water pressure just pushed it out.
On the outside.
Yeah.
On the outside,
Oh, I see
yes.
that.
All
Yeah.
junk.
Yeah. I'd still love to get a tour.
The last picture on there is one area that we cannot get to. The
Underneath
next
it.
page. Yeah, so that's about 8 inches between the bottom of the concrete and the top of the pipe.
But you don't need to get to it, right?
Correct, we do not need to get to it, but that, I'm glad we don't need to get to that,
Yeah.
because that would be a really hard job to do.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Okay, and then the very last memo was just a few pages from the end. Keep going through them.
My last one is a
So there's
picture.
probably 5 or 6
Yeah.
pieces of paper from the very end.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay, so now that's, I think, too
That's part of it.
far.
Too far. Let's see.
You want to go back a little further? If you can find that Hawkins page?
One or two
That
more
Should be
pages.
one
Right
more, I
before the
think.
Hawkins page.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go, right there. So this next one is, as part of the same, these two chemicals, when they react, would release a cloud of chlorine gas. And we do not want that to happen.
So what is it? It's chlorine and sodium hydroxide? Those are the two?
There's a chemical that causes the clumping of the particles, so we can catch them in the sand filter. Yep, coagulant, flocculant,
Yeah.
yes. And so we need to put a containment area for that one. And then the sodium hydroxide. We've got 2 tanks for sodium hydroxide, one that we pump out of into a much smaller tank. And so we need 3 containment vessels for that area.
Okay.
And then one of the tanks that we're using now is actually a 55-gallon drum. And so we would actually get a tank and remove the 55-gallon drum.
The other two tanks will stay?
The other 2 tanks would stay, yes.
But a containment vessel or a containment box basically put
Yep.
underneath them?
Yep, that's exactly what
So you
would
have to
happen.
lift them up?
So they can't mix.
Yeah, they would actually be, think of it just a cardboard box and the tank would be set inside of it.
Right, but you have to
Not
somehow lift up
cardboard.
this tank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cardboard would be a bad thing, yes. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
a chemically resistant
That
plastic.
sounds like a good idea.
And then as also part of this, the chlorine injection system is obsolete. We can't run it in automatic anymore. It's just on or it's off.
But it's been out for a while, right?
Yes.
How long?
I don't know that answer.
But years?
I simply don't know that answer. And so
I don't know that answer either.
the state is saying we need to fix it.
How often does the state come look at the plant?
Every year or two.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think they've seen all these things numerous times without saying that we needed to do anything about them.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that there's been a problem weighing on us for a long time. The Department of Health would have weighed in before now.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like, if this thing failed 5 years ago, we've been just doing it manually since then. I mean, that kind of works, but still you would want to address it sooner than that, I would think, and not wait for the health department to come and
Well, it's
bang
not,
on you.
it's not, I mean, it works, right? It's just, it's not a great way to operate it.
Well,
And it's possible that it was more of a, we're not sure how we want all these controls to work together that was slowing down the decision to just get this fixed.
Mhm.
We're just not letting that be a problem right now. We're just gonna get this fixed.
Yeah, which seems like a great idea.
Yeah.
You get it fixed. I mean, when I was looking through this and seeing that MDH kind of reports, it sort of paints a picture of sort of some longstanding neglect of keeping the thing in good shape, keeping
Yeah.
the whole operation in good shape.
And I don't think that's particularly fair of them, considering they were there a year ago and didn't say the same thing.
Hmm.
So, but new eyes, new opinions, and it's okay. We agree with them. We want to fix these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, great work. Do I hear a motion to approve
Yeah, I mean, it's.
$12,050?
Doesn't seem
to
like
the
there's any
Hawkins
question
wastewater
this needs
treatment
to, needs to happen. So, yeah, so moved.
I'll second. By acclamation, it passes unanimously. Is that it?
Yes, that is it for my portion.
Well done.
A serious reinvestment in the water treatment plant.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's good, but I mean, as I say, it seems like these problems should have been obvious to us as well as the Department of Health, right? Even the containment is like, well, I mean, you see the bottom of that tank and you see the thing corroding at the bottom, the
And
meter
that
stick.
happens very fast
Yes.
in this environment.
That chlorine gas does nasty things to metal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, it's probably not a surprise that it would be a bad idea to mix those two chemicals, right?
for sure.
So I mean, it's a little, I mean, sometimes it does take somebody to point this out, that you have a problem here, you need to fix it, but I don't know. I guess the main point is, it would be nice if we were in a situation or in a position where when people start seeing these problems, like the chlorine injector is out of service, like, well, let's fix it, let's replace it. And it isn't even that expensive, I don't think. But apparently, we were just sort of running it on manual for some time, I don't know.
Sometime, I don't know how
Right,
long.
Right, being new here. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is colored a little bit by my experience up at the YMCA. It's like, if there's a problem, we should address it and fix it and get the system back running like it should be running.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I commend you for taking the bull by the horns here. Good work. Last item on the agenda is other items. Anybody?
seems like we had a pretty good list already, so.
Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I move to adjourn.